Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending today's session. Just a couple reminders before we get started. Please keep your microphones and your videos off during today's presentation. Also, if you have questions or comments, please type them in the chat box and I will relay them after our presentation today. So for today, we have Reggie Tarr. He spoke earlier this round of sessions, and we had a lot of comments and feedback of wanting him to come back and tell his story since he was not able to last time. So today we have Reggie Tarr, and I will turn it over to you, Reggie. So if you want to share your screen and get your PowerPoint up, we're ready for you.
Okay, thank you. I think the video is turned off for everybody, right? I don't know, my video is not on.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it says, video stop, and then, okay.
But that's okay.
There you go.
There you are.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you again. I'm sorry for the last time. While doing my presentation, I had to stop. But we were almost out of time, so it's so good that we are back here again. So today, I will just be telling you my personal story as I promised. So I have to fulfill my promise. That's why I'm here. The last time we were talking about refugee resettlement, and I know some of you have questions and some people never have questions. So today we are back here. If you still have a follow-up question, I would like you, while I'm presenting, just interrupt anytime, and ask your question. Now I will move to sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Uh-oh, it's not whatever. Let me just move it, go to slideshow. Let me make it bigger so we'll all be able to see it. Slideshow, start from beginning. Okay. So as you can see, my name is Reginald Tarr, and I'm the coordinator for refugee resettlement here in Grand Forks. I used to work for Lutheran Social Services, but now I work for the Department of Human Services. Today, I'm just going to tell you my story. I'm going to tell you where I came from. I know where I came from. I'm going to tell you how I got here. I don't know how I got here. And also the last thing I'm going to tell you is what I'm doing here. I'm also confused about that too. So, oh, I hope this thing will work for me today. Okay, there you go. So before I go ahead, I just wanted to show you, a picture of my family, where I get my strength from every day. That's my older boy over there. He's about 26 years old now. And yes, so I'm originally from Liberia. Liberia is a small country in West Africa. It's about the size of the state of Tennessee. Liberia will fit into North Dakota twice, almost twice, because it's about 43,000 square miles, and North Dakota, I think about 80 something. I can't remember, but Liberia will fit almost into North Dakota twice. It's a small country, and the history of Liberia, I'll just brush over things quickly. It's very hard to talk about Liberia without mentioning the United States. There's no way you can say anything about Liberia, talk about the history of Liberia without mentioning the United States, because our history is intertwined. What I mean that is intertwined is that Liberia was founded by free Africans that left the United States. so good that we just celebrated Juneteenth. So when they were free, they decided to go back to Africa, and where they settled, they were resettled right on a piece of land called Liberia, free, in the 18th century. So then Liberia became a republic. It was the only republic in the whole Africa. So it's the very first republic in Africa. Liberia declared her independence in 1847 because the free Africans from the United States went back in, I think 1822. So you can see Liberia has, this is the political map of Liberia. The capital is Monrovia. It's the one in red right here. And Monrovia is is named after the 5th US president called James Monroe. Liberia has, counties as well. This is the flag of Liberia. You can see it's a complete replica of the US flag. Our pledge of allegiance is the same. The only thing we remove the United States and have Liberia. We have not added the honor guard, but since I was, little, we went to school. It's the same pledge we, will recite before we go to class. So you can see the flag. We have one star in the flag because it's just one country, but it's the same scribes and all that. So that's why I said the history is intertwined. Everything about Liberia is, is connected to America. Holidays in Liberia, I just listed a few holidays so you see. We celebrate almost the same holidays, February 11, Armed Forces Day, I think is celebrated by the military. The third one here, you call Decoration Day, is what people, I think they call it Memorial Day here now, Memorial Day, we say Decoration Day. And you can see our Independence Day is in July as well. We celebrate Thanksgiving in Liberia, but the Thanksgiving is celebrated on the first Thursday of November. Here, I think it's the 3rd or something, like, 3rd or 4th Thursday. But in Liberia, it's the first Thursday in November. She was the president of Liberia after the Civil War. We had a devastating Civil War. And after that, she became the president. Her name is Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. As you can see, the Johnson name. If you met Liberian, in a Liberian somewhere, most Liberians will have English names, or their last name would be Johnson, Peterson, White, Green, and all that, because of the African American. Here in the United States, you say African American, but in Liberia, we say American Liberians. So the American Liberians, have the same Johnson, Peterson, White, Green, and all those names. I myself been Reggie. I didn't come here before I changed my name to Reggie, so we use those English names in Liberia. Now we have a new president. He was the world best soccer player before. His name is George Openwia. I just want to tell you where I came from. That's where I came from. How I got here. I will step back a little bit. When I was a teenager, at age 17, I was almost about to graduate from high school, and I moved away from my parents and used to live around campus in another city. And all of a sudden, while I was thinking about which college I would go to when I graduate from high school, all of a sudden a devastating civil war broke up in Liberia, a devastating civil war. And I fled to the Ivory Coast. The Ivory Coast, let me just show you something on the map here. Okay, there you go. So this is Liberia right here. And the Ivory Coast is here. It's a country that was colonized by the French people. So they speak French in the Ivory Coast. In Liberia, we speak English. As I said, free Africans left the United States. So that's why our English is a little bit different. We don't speak the British English because we're not colonized by British people. So in Liberia, we have, though we speak English in Liberia, but we have other dialects because when the free Africans left from the United States and went to Liberia, they met the indigenous people there. There were people that were living there, the indigenous people. So they have tribes, and so a lot of other languages they speak. 16 other languages is spoken in Liberia, plus English. So English is done in school, and the languages are spoken around, the counties. It depends on which county you are in and all that. So that's why people from Liberia or maybe Africa will speak multiple languages, because sometimes your uncle or your dad will be from another tribe and your mom from another tribe, and you learn both languages, so just Liberia being small like that, we got 17 languages. So in Liberia, as I said, I was around campus when a devastating civil war broke up. But then I didn't even know anything about civil war. The only thing I knew about war was the movies that we used to be watching. John Rambo, Sylvester Stallone, First Blood Part 1, Part 2. That was in the 80s. Those are the kind of movies I used to watch. That's the only thing I knew about civil war. But in 1990, let's say 89, it started. Well, in 1990, things intensified, and then I had to flee. And I fled to the Ivory Coast, this country that is colonized by the French people, so they speak French in the Ivory Coast. I fled to the Ivory Coast. When I talk about fleeing, it's not like you pack your things and put in your cologne and all those things and you have to leave. It was not that case. I just imagine where you are now before your computers or whatever thing, and then you have to leave right away. So I fled and went to the Ivory Coast for a long journey, a long, long journey to get to the Ivory Coast. And when I got to the Ivory Coast, things were difficult. Because then I was a teenager. I didn't even know where my parents went, but it took years in the Ivory Coast before we were able to reunite. So in the Ivory Coast, we were assisted by UNHCR. I think I told you about UNHCR during my first presentation, where United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Those are that's the organization that will come to the aid of people that will be fleeing civil war and things. So they were able to help us with food rations and all those things, And I stayed in the Ivory Coast I thought it was going to be for a week or two, because when I fled, I had my notebooks with me because I didn't want to fall back on my lesson. I thought, well, I will get back, within a week or two, things will be stable, and I will meet my friends and we'll talk about these stories and where we went and what happened and all that. But it was not the case. I ended up staying in the Ivory Coast for 13 years. I'm not saying 13 months, I said 13 years. After I fled from Liberia. So I lived in the Ivory Coast those 13 years. It was really, really terrible and difficult. I completed my high school in the Ivory Coast. And then to go to college, it was difficult as well because one, I didn't have the money to go to college. And then it was French. You have to learn the French and be able to speak the French fluently in order before you can be able to go to college. So after some time, I was privileged, and there was a technical college that was established by UNHCR. So I went to the technical college and I did building construction, rural building construction. And I was privileged that after I graduated, I was employed to teach rural building construction. So I taught rural building construction for sometimes. And while I was there also, I was privileged to be able to work for an NGO. When I say NGO, I mean non-governmental organization. The non-governmental organization, I think some of you know, would be something like Médecins Sans Frontières, no, let me put it in English. Doctors Without Borders. And yeah, those organizations, those Red Cross or whatever would be a non-governmental organization. I was privileged to work for Save the Children. I don't know what any of you heard about Save the Children. They're around the world. So what they were doing in this region was that they were trying to reunify families. Because in Liberia, when the Civil War broke up, people went hair scattered all over. They went to Guinea, to the Republic of Guinea, to Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, all these different places. So family members were looking for their relatives. And then they will come to Save the Children, and we will, document the information, put it in our database, and do family tracing. So we will trace the family all around our region and be able to find the family members and reunite them. It was a very rewarding job, because sometimes when after searching for a year or two and you find a family member, or you find the child of a parent, and then they are very happy and there's a big party and all that. But sometimes we have to come back to them too sometimes and tell people that, well, we searched and we are sorry that this child is not alive anymore, or your parents are no longer alive. They got killed in the Civil War or something happened. So that's the job I was doing for Save the Children, and we were reunifying families. One of the cases that stuck with me that maybe I can just mention was that a single mom, not a single mom, a mother with two children. She had two children, their ages 5 and 3, and she came from Liberia and fled to the Ivory Coast as well to seek refuge. It was a very long journey. She had her two children and she was pregnant. A 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and she was pregnant for the third one. I don't know what happened to her husband. I guess he might have died in the war, in the Civil War. So when she came to the Ivory Coast, because of the long trip and how they got there, her pregnancies resulted into complication, and they took her to the hospital and she did not survive. So she and the child did not survive. So the two children, her two children, the 5 years old and the 3 years old, were turned over to our agency, Save the Children, to trace and find the family members so we can reunify the children to their family. So just imagine tracing for the 2-year-old and 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. It was difficult. Moreover, the children were confused. They didn't even know where they were, what part of the world, because they have traveled a long distance. And now, so we took them to our center, kept them there, and then started tracing. It took me 4.5 years before I was able to find an uncle. Even if there was sometimes we have to look at the children's body because see if they have marks on them, because some of the tribes in Africa will mark themselves. So we would limit our search to that tribe. We had to go to the borderline to ask people who has seen a single mother, pregnant woman with two children wearing this kind of clothes and all that. We did it for years, tracing all over. And it was a difficult case. And so that one still stuck with me. But after 4.5 years, we were able to find an uncle and we reunified the two children, and they went back to their family. So in the Ivory Coast, as I said, I lived there and doing all the jobs. I used to like my job. I forgot about Liberia since I fled, and I have lived there for 13 years now. And then all of the sudden again, another civil war broke up in Ivory Coast. They had their own political struggle as well. So now I was sandwiched by civil wars. I couldn't go back to Liberia where I came from, and I couldn't stay in the Ivory Coast because there's another civil war. It was difficult, and then United Nations that I told you about during my first presentation stepped in and said, well, we need to find a durable solution. I think I told you that United Nations has 3 solutions for refugees. The first one is to repatriate them, which means taking them back home, repatriate or repatriate, whatever way you pronounce it, to take them back home. The second goal is to help them to integrate locally, local integration, which means asking that particular country in which they are residing to give them work permits and all that and be able to move freely and live there. And the third solution is to find a third country for them, which is the resettlement program. the third country resettlement. So given our condition during that time that I couldn't go back to Liberia and couldn't live in the Ivory Coast, the only solution was third country resettlement. So we were interviewed quickly. We were taken to a safe location where the interviewing went on and screening. And then I traveled to the US. But before coming to the US, I knew then the United States, because as I said, the United States and Liberia has that history that is connected. So everything, even in school, when I was in school, the history we used to learn, it was all about the US, the Mississippi rivers, and all the books that I read was about Jean and Sally and the apple. I don't know whether some of you read those books in the 80s and or late 70s when I started going to school the first time. And I even remember the first time in the late 70s when they took me to school. The missionary that was an American missionary, she told me to put my hand over my hair like this. And then my hand couldn't touch my ear. And she said I was so young to go to school. So they didn't allow me to go to school that year. I don't know, that was way back. That was in the 70s anyway. So I don't think anybody's doing it to anybody. So you can just, if you have little kids around or something, ask them to just, try it. I don't know, at that time it didn't work for me. And so the following year I was able to go to school. So yes, everything I knew a lot about the United States. So when I was coming, they told me I was coming to the United States. I said, oh yeah, that's great. At least, we are living this deplorable condition and then going to somewhere where you can continue to rebuild your life, your life. So we flew to Chicago and New York. I said, oh yes, I know this city. I've been hearing about New York. I've seen it on the movies and all that. And the person that went to meet me at the airport, that was the ROM employee. ROM is International Organization for Migration. They are the one responsible for the transportation of refugees. So they told me, well, Reggie, this is not your final destination. You will sleep in New York, but you are traveling the next day. I said, well, they say Chicago. I said, oh yeah, I know that city, Chicago. I've heard about Chicago. So when I flew to Chicago the next day, then another ROM guy was there and he met me and he told me, well, I'm taking you to the terminal to get into another flight. This is not your final destination. I said, but where am I going? He said, Fargo. I said, Fargo? Well, is that the United States? Because I never heard about Fargo before. So I got on a flight from Chicago to Fargo. And when I got to Fargo, the work that I'm doing now, even the position I'm in, the lady that used to do it in Grand Forks went to Fargo and she had my name on a piece of paper, Reggie. So when I came out of the terminal, I went towards her and she said, Reggie, I'm here to pick you up. I'll be your case manager and that, but this is not your final destination. We still have to travel an hour. I said, where am I going? She said, Grand Forks. So I said, well, it seems to be almost, is that Canada or is still the United States? He said it was the United States. So I came to Grand Forks in September of that year. That was way in 2003. I don't know how many years now. So just to go faster, let me just tell you some adjustment that I have to make here when I got in Grand Forks. Let me tell you about 3 adjustments. The first adjustment that I have to make was the weather. I came in September and it was already too cold for me. Coming from a country where, in Africa, it's warm. If it's really, really cold, we're talking about maybe 60 degrees or something, because it's really, it's hot there. Our average temperature would be like 77, something like that. Coming to the US, especially Grand Forks, in September, it was way too cold for me. So that's the first adjustment. There was one time when we settled down in Grand Forks, my son had to go to school. For some of you who live around here or have been in Grand Forks, we used to live right on 42nd. It's just across the street from UND campus. And they got an elementary school there. So I used to walk my son to school because we came in, I never had a car. I was just wrapping up with a lot of clothes, bundle up myself, and we walk across the street and go and take into campus. So that's what we used to do in the winter. There was one day my son came from school and He said that the teacher did not allow me to go out for recess today. So I said, why? He said, well, the teacher said it was so cold and my friends were playing out there in the snow, but they did not allow me to go out. I said, but then why would the teacher not allow you? He said, well, the teacher said I never had snow pens. So I said, snow pens? Do they have special pens for snow? He said, well, I said, how does it look? He said, well, most of them were wearing black pants, but some had different colors, but most people were in black. So I said, okay, you know why? Wear your black pants to school tomorrow. Because it was my first experience. I didn't even know anything about the winter or snow pants and all that. So he told me, oh, no, that. And then I said, well, let me call the case manager. So I called the case manager, the work I'm doing now, the lady that used to do it. I called her and she came and I told her, well, I don't understand what my son is talking about. He's talking about snow pants. And she said, oh, yes, Reggie, we can go and get you snow pants. We need to get snow pants for him. So we went to Walmart and we bought him the first snow pants. That's how I knew that they had a special pants for snow. So that was the first adjustment we have to make was the weather. The second thing was food. In Africa, where I grew up, you go to the market. Some of you who've been in Africa or Asia or other countries, you know that the market, even in China, an open market where you find everything on the table. And you can just go and buy what you want. Even if you are buying a fish, sometimes the fish will be alive. But coming to the US, everything I found, everything in a package, where I have to read the label and know what's in it before, so it used to take me longer time to shop. Like it might take some of you 15 minutes, but it would take me an hour or even an hour and a half because I don't know. Sometimes I try some food, I don't like it, and then the next time I don't buy it. So, and then, that's what I used to do. So, there was one time my son, he came from school again, and we gave him food to eat, and he didn't want to eat the food at home. So I said, but then what will you eat? And he said, well, I'm used to eating something different now. I said, what do you eat in school? He started telling me about, the pizza and burger and all that. So he said, well, let's go to McDonald's. I said, McDonald's? I haven't been to McDonald's before. But if you want to, if that's the only thing you want to eat, then let's go to McDonald's. So we used to live on 42nd on the north side of Grand Forks. So there's a McDonald's across the gateway. So we walked there and we went. When I walk and I reached the counter, I looked at the menu. I just looked, and I didn't even know what to order because I've never ordered that before. I don't even know what it is when you talk about burger or double this and that. What I don't even know. So by the time I look behind me, I've been holding the line for a long time. A lot of people, the line was so long now because they were waiting on me to order. So my son was embarrassed. And he said, Dad, you know what happened? Just go by the numbers. So I said, okay, I want number one. And since then, I always go with number one. That's my favorite now. When I get to McDonald's, I order number one and I'm out of the way. So I don't hold the line anymore because, so yes, that's the adjustment I have to make with food. Coming to Grand Forks in 2003, it was even difficult to find any African food around here. We had to go as far as Fargo before we can find something, that we even wanted. And also it's very expensive because it's international food and that. So that's the adjustment. But right now I enjoy the American food. I enjoy eating pizza and all the different things that they have around in the restaurant here. The third adjustment I will tell you about is connections, friendship. I didn't know anybody, so I used to stay in my apartment all day. When I go to work, I used to walk to work. And then later on, I had a bicycle that I used to ride even during the winter and all that to go to the industrial park. For those of you that know Grand Forks, then, I would ride a bicycle and go to the industrial park and come back and all that. So there was one time I was out of food in my apartment and I needed to go to the store to buy some food. So I said, well, now it's really, really cold and I don't have a car. I don't know how we'll get to Higos or anywhere to buy food. So I said, well, let me go in the entryway of the apartment. I went down in the apartment entryway to where they have the mailboxes. And I stood there and said, well, I will just say hi to people coming in and out. Maybe I'll make a friend today. So I started saying hi to people. But what I failed to realize was that that particular building was a lot of UND students because it's just across the street from the UND campus. So by the time I say hi, before they say hi, they were gone. When people going in and out, I was just saying hi to everybody. Like, like a crazy guy saying hi. And then they would just leave. So there was a guy, a gentleman, he was a UND student going in. Maybe I said hi to him out, I can't remember because I was not looking at people's faces and things. So I said hi and he stopped, he shook my hands and he asked me for my name and we started to talk. And then I told him I live in this apartment building and I wanted to go to the store, to Eagles, to buy some food because I was out of food. And he said, well, let's go, let's jump in my car, I can take you. And we jumped in his car and we went to Eagles and I hurriedly grabbed some things and I got out of the store and came back. He drove me back to the apartment and said, yes, my number. I'm a UND student. Call me on Saturday and Sundays. I'm free and I will take you to places that you want to go. And not only did he take me to the store, he became my friend in 2003. I'm talking about 18 years ago. I still remember that. And he took me to other places. He even helped me to complete my FAFSA application for school. You know how tedious it is. You know, some of you maybe have your uncle, aunt, and other people around that you could ask and they will help you and show you, or maybe they've been through the university. But for me, it was not that case. I was just the only person. I didn't know anyone else. So he was the one that was able to help me, and I got into UND. The reason I went into social work is because I've been doing some social work back home that I just told you about, family reunion, family tracing. So that's what put me into social work. So then I went to UND and then I graduated from UND. I can't remember how many years, maybe 10 years ago now. And I left UND, though I'm back, I'm finishing my master's very soon. But yeah, so he was able to help me. So that's the connection, because I never had those connections and other things to go to school. And so after I graduated from UND, I went to Lutheran Social Services to do my internship and I got stuck there. After my internship, they employed me as a case manager. I worked there as a case manager for a couple of years, and then I got moved up to being the coordinator or the director of the program here in Grand Forks. Just to tell you, every time when I do presentation to the student, they always, the professor always tell me to add that part of my story. So I'll be telling them, just add that part of my story. While I was with Lutheran Social Services, in 2016, I think maybe that's the only picture I have here for myself. Okay, there you go. In 2016, the White House was looking for community leaders to honor in the United States. So they were looking for at least 10 community leaders across the country. And these cities around the country would, nominate people. So Grand Forks City decided to nominate me as a community leader working with immigrants. Among all the applications around the United States, I was one of the 10 that was selected to be honored at the White House. So in 2016, I went to the White House to be honored. It was a big deal in Grand Forks. Not only Grand Forks, but even North Dakota, because in Fargo, the news media called me and all that. I went to do interview. So it was a big deal. They were calling Grand Forks office and Grand Forks City, and the White House wanted me to come there to be honored. So I went to the White House in 2016. And I was a celebrity for almost that 2 weeks, but I lost my status now, so I'm no longer a celebrity. I went to the White House, and that day, the first day we went in, they allowed us to go around. They had the Secret Service give us a tour of the White House, the garden, and all that, because there was a garden, I think Michelle Obama garden. I went to the garden, but they didn't allow me to pick anything though from the garden. We just took pictures around our area. And then we went into the White House. I can remember seeing in the hallway to the White House, see President Bush and his dog and all these different, all of the pictures that they kept there. But it was President Obama at that time, but he still has some other president's pictures there as well. In the White House, I went and saw the rare room where they have rare furniture. Some of you who've been to the White House, they got, it's like a museum. So they have white furniture, white carpet, and all those things. I mean, white and red in the rare room. In the green room, it's the same thing. And in the blue room, and then I have the other place where, President Trump and other people used to sit down, the fireplace, when you have other people come to visit. And that's all they allow us to be in the White House for all that time. And then in the evening, we went to the West Wing and then had the event. And there was other dignitaries and the Madeleine Albright and other people that were there. They were, some of the speakers. And after that, we had, refreshment together. And that, and then I left the White House. The city of Grand Forks connected me to the senators. That time it was Senator John Hoeven and Hadi Hakim. Yeah, those two senators. I went to the Capitol Hill. They have their intern take me around their offices. They put me in a little train they can get in when you go into vote, when they go into vote into the Capitol Hill and all those things. So yeah, it was a historical experience for me. Especially in Washington, D.C. So I don't know how it happened. I don't know how the White House would pick someone all the way in Grand Forks in a small city here. So if any of you are responsible for that, try it again, because I would like to go back to the White House. Yeah, it was a very wonderful experience. Like, Reggie coming out of the White House here. And this is the West Wing. In the evening, we had to change clothes and go back and all that. So it's right behind the White House where other people that were honored. So I can keep telling you my story and just keep going, but I would like to stop here and just want you to ask questions that you may have.
There's a few questions.
Yeah.
What is Unification Day in reference to specifically?
Oh, Unification Day on the calendar that I show. I left Liberia a long time. I can't miss Unification Day, May 14th. Well, the holidays, I don't know what I still remember. I left Liberia 30 years ago, 31 years ago since I fled from Liberia. I have never been back to Liberia. But May 14th, I know May Day is May 1st. We celebrate May Day as well. But Unification Day could be, it was celebrated by not African American. We don't say African American, we say American Liberians in Liberia. But actually, I don't want to just say something I'm not sure. I have to find out what the day is all about.
Did you ever go to Cameroon? My sister-in-law was a missionary there for 40 years.
Wow, that's a long time. Cameroon is in West Africa, but as you know, Africa is a whole big continent, so it's hard to get around. Even in Liberia, yeah, it's still within the same West Africa, but I haven't been to Cameroon. I've been to Nigeria, so that's just a border country with Cameroon. I've been going to Nigeria. My wife used to live in Nigeria, so I go there. But for Liberia, I plan to go to Liberia, but then the year we plan to go back is when they had the Ebola crisis. So I didn't go. So since I left Liberia, that's 31 years ago since I fled from Liberia. And I would like to go back sometimes to see those schools and things that I attended, communities that I live in. I don't know whether they still exist. Yeah, but I have my relatives, my brothers and sisters, they all live in Liberia. Some of them live outside Liberia, but most of them live in Liberia. So I'm in contact with them, but I'm planning to go back soon. Yeah, any other questions? Sorry, I've never been looking in the chat. So if there are any question in the chat, you can just ask me the question.
Have you managed to adjust to the cold? In what other ways is it different here than in Liberia and then Ivory Coast?
Well, yeah. The first thing I would say is that I survived about 18 winters now in Grand Forks. I'll say survive because the winter in North Dakota I almost want to kill people. So yes, but it's completely different from North Dakota. In Liberia, we will always have it, in the 80s, 90s or something like that. The only time we have two seasons, the rain season and dry season. That's how to say it. So there'll be a season that will rain, and also the first 6 months from April to October is rainy season, and from October to I think the same April, from the 15th of April, it's the dry season. So it's very dry during that time, and and very hot. But the other time of the year would be raining because it's a rainforest area. It's not savanna, it's a rainforest. So the same with the Ivory Coast, they have the same, they just two countries by each other. The only thing is that Ivory Coast were colonized by the French people, and Liberia, I would not say colonized. If it was colonized, it would be the American Colonization Society that took free Africans back home. So yeah, the two countries are side by side. So yeah, with the weather, it's completely different. But what I like about the weather here in North Dakota or in the United States is that I like that transition from the cold weather to the warm weather. It brings that excitement. So I like it than just staying in the same weather all the time. So
There's just a comment. I have never been to DC, let alone the White House. Congrats on that. Very impressive. And then, did you find your family in Liberia? And I think you kind of answered that.
Well, yes, I found my family. When we fled to the Ivory Coast, it took time because people went here scattered. There were some children that were even in school, kindergarten, and first grade, second grade, and all that. They just follow teachers or whoever because just imagine you're in a city and the city is attacked, so you just run anywhere. There's no time to find family members. So people went to different places and it took years. And even up to this time, some people had not found their relatives. And maybe they went to other countries and they just decided to stay there. And that, yeah, but I was able to find my family in those that stay in Liberia and those that travel around, able to find them.
So far, that's the end of questions.
Okay. So any question apart from those in the chat room? Even about the resettlement that I talked about, I don't know what it was, a few weeks ago. Or do you?
There's a question. Did you and your wife meet in the US?
No, we met in Africa. But then, the way the program works is that when you petition for someone to come, people just say it, but they don't understand that if you petition for someone to come, it takes forever. I remember being in the US here, and it took 3.5 years for my wife to join here. Because when you petition, the paper goes to the immigration and there's no time frame, no time. They just, whenever you get a letter, that's it. They will tell you, well, your case has been approved and we are processing. And there's no time. If you talk to any immigrant, that's the most frustrating thing. You can't plan. I remember people used to ask me when they see my ring and say, oh, are you married? I say, yes. Where's your wife? She's in Africa. When is she coming? Well, I don't know. Say, are you sure you're married? Are you sure? Why would you not know when your wife is coming? Yes, and it took 3.5 years. So it's a difficult process to be able to reunite. Even it could be a family member sending for their son or for their mother or something. I know we've been hearing the word chain migration sometimes on the news, but people just use it But when they say chain migration, I don't know what it really means, because you, according to the immigration, you can only bring your son, your children, your wife, and let's say spouses, and your parents. You cannot bring your brothers and all that. No. So that's why my brothers and all, my siblings live in Africa. But when you hear chain migration, people just think that you can bring all your family members as long as you're in the US. And that's not true, that's false. If you talk to any immigrant, they will tell you we all got relatives all over and they cannot come to the US because I can only bring my children, my parents, and my spouse.
This is kind of a two-part question. How did the Civil War start and why? And then how long did it last and how did it end?
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a long question. So it takes me back to the history. For Liberia, not to share blame, but everything started from the US. The Liberian Civil War, it started by conflict between American Liberians and the indigenous people of Liberia. So when the free Africans were taken from here, they went back. They couldn't speak any of the languages that we spoke there. And it brought big confusion because they could only speak English. And the culture was already different. They didn't understand the culture and all that. So that conflict had been there for years, since 1847. And the African Americans in Liberia were the one that were ruling the country. They could be all the ministers and presidents and all that. The native people were just on the side because they resettled part of the land, and that's where the government was, and then it was not in the interior part and all that. So in 1980, the native people took over with coup d'etat. Anyway, so French overthrew the government. Yeah, let me say it that way. They had a coup d'etat and then overthrew the government, and the native took over. When I say native, I'm talking about people from the 16 tribes. So the different from the American Liberians that couldn't speak any of the tribes and any of the languages. I think so. Yeah, so it brought conflict. So that's why I'm saying it started from here, because slavery and all that spilled into Liberia because the American Liberians couldn't fit in perfectly. And the Civil War lasted for 14 years in Liberia. That's what I spent 13 years in the Ivory Coast, and I couldn't go back. It lasted for 14 years. Later on, it started becoming tribal because each tribe was trying to protect its territory. So they will have their own militia and group, different groups to protect themselves from, the enemy and all that. So tribes started attacking tribes and all those things. So it became a tribal war. And let me see what other question. Yeah, I told you when it ended. It started in 1989 and it lasted till 2003. And so it was really, really devastating. We thought that other countries were going to come in, like the United States, because in Africa, Liberia used to be considered a small United States, given the history. So people thought that the United States was going to come in, but at that time, I think Congress was focused on different wars somewhere. And yeah, so there was no intervention for that many years. So that's why the war lasted that long. And later on, the African troops were able to come in, and the Civil War ended after 14 years.
Has your family been to the US to visit you at all?
Oh, yeah, I have my father here with me in the US. I brought my father. He's here, but other family members know. Coming to the US is a whole long, difficult process to even get the visa. So people cannot just come easily to visit. You must be someone, maybe a business person, or have in a lot of money that you can prove that you do everything for yourself and that before you can come on a tourist visa. So it's just a whole difficult thing for anybody to do, except they are joining family members. But no, I have my siblings. I have two of them here, and I have my father here and my children as well. And I see, let me see, I see another question there. How long did the Civil War last? Okay. Do you miss African animals? Yeah, you see, when it comes to animals in Africa, let me just put something, things in perspective here. Um, in Africa, like in South Africa, they have safari where people go and see the animals and things. I will tell you that a lot of people in Africa, have not seen the animals because they don't have the money to go there. The only way you will see animals in Africa would be when you go to the zoo, or maybe if the person go way into the forest. But there are people like me and other people who grew up in Africa. We never, I think I saw most animals in the United States than I saw in Africa because I can see them in the zoo. But in cities in Africa, the big cities, there's no way you can find any animal. The only animal you see will be domestic animals, the dog, cat, and these things. But wild animals, you won't see them anywhere, except you go to the countries that they have the safari stuff and you go on those trips. But apart from that, you won't be able to see them.
Are you glad to live here, or would you prefer to be back in Liberia or the Ivory Coast? Are there many types of bugs there?
Oh, yes. Sure. They got mosquitoes and the bugs are there. They have mosquitoes and things as well, especially mosquito spreading malaria in Africa. I know they have medications and other things for malaria. Um, yes, I would like to go back to Liberia, which I'm planning to do, to visit Liberia. Most of my children were born here and they are American. I myself, um, even Liberia, where I left, I'm talking about 31 years. Just imagine living where you live now for 31 years and go back. You don't know where you're going back to. Everything was destroyed. I know my family members and brothers, a lot of people went back. They were able to rebuild for themselves and all that. So for me, going back there, yes, I would like to see the place. I would like to go and live there. And talking about that, there are some of my clients that have come to the US and decided to go back. I have families come from Iraq as refugee, and they found out that, well, Iraq was better. The only thing that make it difficult was the war. And now that the war has ended, he thought that it's better to go back because his job he was doing was more rewarding and it was better than coming to be a dishwasher here in the US. So then they returned to Iraq, and other people have gone back home as well. Most refugees you see coming, especially children under the age of 30 or something years, don't know where they call home. The only home is the United States because they were born here. And even if they were born outside the US, it was not the country that their parents came from. It's the country they fled to. So they don't know whom they haven't been, home. So when someone say go home, they don't even know where you're talking about home because they were born here or they were born in another country, and that I don't want to miss a question. And then
How can we be better allies to refugees? What can we do to help them assimilate to U.S. culture while also welcoming their home culture?
that's great. Yeah, that's the enrichment of humanity where we give and take here. Sometimes we think that maybe refugees don't have anything to give. I myself, when I came, I started volunteering with an organization called Global Friends. Well, even before I worked with Lutheran Social Services, they were doing volunteering work with immigrants. So I went there and said I wanted to volunteer, and they assigned a family to me. I thought I had so much to teach the family, but I ended up learning a lot from the family. Then I could even teach them. They were family from Bhutan. The Nepali people, they came from Bhutan, fled to Nepal, and they were resettled here. I learned a lot of things about their culture, the food they eat, why they eat this, why they do this, why they put a red mark on their faces, and all those things. It was a very learning experience for me, and eye-opening, for me. So yes, there are a lot of opportunities to work with immigrants. We have in Grand Forks, we have Global Friends. In Bismarck, they have Global Neighbors. In Fargo, there are other immigrants groups that you can volunteer, and you'll be able to work. And I tell you, it will be a rewarding experience. You will learn a lot from the people. And also, immigrants working with people, the first thing I would like you to do is not to see immigrants somewhere and say, oh, yes, I heard Reggie told his story. Can you tell me your story? People, it shouldn't be the first thing to start with. You should be friend with the person, and then when they feel comfortable, like me at this point, to be able to tell you some part of their story, and they will tell you, because those stories are sometimes very terrible stories. What I'm telling you here, I think I told you guys, I'm telling you the PG version of my story. Because nobody want to revisit the area sometimes, they are very slippery slope. You don't want to fall into, the depression or something. But people lost their family members and then relatives and all that, so you should make them be comfortable before they themselves will start to open up to you. But I know some of us have the tendency of meeting people and start to vet them right away. You got to know all about them, what they eat, and everything on the same day, and before they can be your friend. And that will not be the group and the route to take. And another thing is that if you make a friend with an immigrant or refugee and they cannot speak the language fluently, please assist them. Just tell them to try their English every time. But I see before my clients will go to get services, to other places I will not name. And then someone will just say, hey, I don't understand what you're saying. I can't understand your English. Go and find an interpreter, then you come back. Instead of this, what I'm saying here is not a one-way street. If you are not understanding someone, it means the person is not even understanding you too as well. So don't think that, because I can speak the English and you can speak, it means that you are understanding me, but I'm not understanding you. No, it's not a one-way street. I hope I'm not talking too much. So I will pay, did I answer the question?
I think so. Because of your son's experience with different things that were new to you, do you help refugees in a better way than you were acclimated to North Dakota?
Oh yes, I tell them my stories. I would like to tell you that when the refugees come, they come with unrealistic expectation, which means that their expectation is so high because they are being in a kind of deplorable conditions in refugee camp where maybe no running water or this and that. So coming to the US, they just think it's a magic bullet where everything will just be okay for them. Or maybe they watch movies and they see people showing New York City and everything is just, the streets are paved and all that. So all the expectation or people have in Africa or other countries about the US or the West is that people here just drink milk and go back to bed. And they don't know when they come and start to face reality where they have to work. I have seen my clients come and we place them on dishwashing job, hotel cleaning job, and they come back to me and say, well, it's difficult. I think it was better on the refugee camp than here now because with all the job I'm doing, I can't even still make ends to meet because the rent, I don't have a car, and I have childcare here. I have to run here and and you find them crying sometimes in my office, and I have to, tell them, well, things will be better, and we work with them. And they were way there, and they came down, and then we moved them up again, and then they became stable. And now I'm telling you that some of them own homes, they're driving new cars and all that. But we have to work with them, and we share our experiences. That the question, things that I've been through, I tell them, look, I myself use a bicycle to go to work in the winter time. I used to bundle up my son, wrapping up and walking to school in the winter and walking back. And those stories and things I tell them too. And yeah, so it has been really anything you learn in life, anything you go through, you can use it. So that's why I'm using it as my tools as well.
And we have one last question. What can we do to have a more inclusive state culturally and celebrate our uniqueness without assimilation?
Great. Well, yes, the first thing I would like us to do is to make our state, North Dakota, a welcoming state. a welcoming state to immigrants and refugees. Because I know that there was a misunderstanding. Most people don't understand that even the refugee program is a federal program. That is the federal government that is allowing refugees, and that the president is the one setting the numbers of refugees that will come. Or that some people don't know. They think they were Lutheran social services or Reggie taking going to the border with load of truck and bringing people, then truck load of people bringing them in. No, it's nothing like that. It's a federal program, and it's a humanitarian program as well. So we should try to make our state a welcoming state, advocate for people, because as I said, it's not a choice. People find and say, I myself, I just told you my story. I didn't even know, it was not a plan that, oh, I'm going to the US. Since 31 years ago, I fled from my home country. I even lived in the Ivory Coast for 13 years. It was just because of another war. That's why I came, I was able to come here. Otherwise, it was not part of, my plan. So the same thing can happen to people. They find themselves, places that they didn't support, they never planned to be. So we should be able to welcome people. We should be able to celebrate their culture. I know that sometimes some of my clients will speak their languages, and people will say, hey, this country, we don't need interpreter. We don't need interpreter in the United States. United States is a country of one language, and you must learn the language. We have to be realistic. Can any of us go to China right now, or Germany, or maybe Russia, and start to speak Russian in a week? It's not possible, but we want immigrants or refugees to come, and they shouldn't use any interpreter. They should just learn the English right away. It takes time. And also those things. And even when other people, sometimes they get offended when people start to speak different language somewhere, even if they're having conversation and things. We need to be able to welcome that diversity. Different cultures having program and things, we should be able to go to their events. There are a lot of ethnic stores around. Sometimes I know you don't have to buy something there, but sometimes just stop by and see what's going on there and check. I know it will feel foreign to you. It'll be a whole foreign territory that you enter, but it's good to have that feeling sometimes. So, and that's the way we will be able to welcome people. And moreover, some immigrants or refugees have been telling me that some people, they will work somewhere, no one will recognize them. Even they will be in a group, nobody say hi to them because maybe they look different, dress different, and all that. Just imagine living somewhere where nobody says anything to you. It's just that, well, am I oppressing? I want to be recognized. Sometimes I want to feel that people see me. So just saying hi to someone or smiling, or someone going the wrong way and he goes, or in the grocery store or doing something, you tell them, oh no, this is not the way to do it. You help them up. Just those little things can make the difference.
Yeah, there's just a couple more comments. When I was an intern at Global Friends, I attended different meetings with refugees to try and identify ways that we could help them. And I remember some of the women telling me that when they were giving birth, the nurse would be holding up a phone with a translator. I cannot imagine going through that.
Yeah, that would be a terrible experience, because the thing is that I understand the hospital, I don't want to name hospital, but all true, they don't want a relative or someone to interpret. They would like to have the full interpreter, but when it comes to delivery and thing, I think it's better to have an in-person interpreter, schedule. That would be preferable than someone that's in labor and they have to hold a phone in their ear and listen to someone else that can't even see what's going on there. I see someone posted a question and say, I don't mean to be ignorant, but what is the prevailing religion in Liberia? Yeah, in Liberia, the religion there is Christianity. We have a few Muslims that migrated to Liberia from other countries like Free and Guinea and all that. But as I said, Liberia was founded by free Africans from here. So the religion they talk about was Christianity. Mostly, so Liberia is almost, I would say 90, maybe 95 or 90 something percent. A few years ago, they wanted to declare Liberia or Christian nation, but I don't think it passed in their Congress or something. Because it's mostly Christianity. That's the religion, and plus the additional beliefs and yeah, in Liberia.
Well, that wraps up the questions. A lot of people saying, thank you, Reggie. You truly are an inspiration. We are lucky to have you in our community. And thank you again for taking time out to present to our group. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And again, for those of you that are still on, the survey will be sent out after the presentation. If you could just take a few minutes to fill that out and leave any feedback, that would be great. And then we have one training left coming up next week, and that is with Don with the North Dakota Safety Council, and he'll be presenting on personal safety and techniques. So Reggie, there's a couple of people asking for your contact information.
Yes, I'm putting my email there, my personal email or maybe my work email. I don't know. I can put both of them. Okay. Phone number. Okay, I got my email and phone numbers there. Okay, bye everybody.
Thank you, Reggie. Have a good day.
Yeah, bye.